member for Kildonan, St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow, the House of Commons will see a very important vote, one that will show Canadians whether the New Democratic Party, the NDP Party of Canada, is a opposition party that believes in its role to hold the government, the Liberal Party, accountable for its actions, or if the NDP is just a sidekick to Liberal government and will do whatever it can to uphold their government and to support them in their cover-up of getting to the truth on the Beijing election interference in our elections. That's what's at stake with the vote tomorrow. And the stakes are so high, in fact, just breaking on the news, there's sort of whispers going on that the Liberals may make tomorrow a confidence vote. That's how desperate this government is to cover up the truth. That's the latest on the news, that may be happening tomorrow, to force the hand of the NDP that if they lose that vote, the Liberals lose that vote, we will have an election in this country. That's how desperate the Liberals are to make sure we don't get to the truth, Mr. Speaker. So I implore them to fulfill their duty as the opposition party, the NDP, to hold this Liberal government accountable, no matter what the consequences are tomorrow. That is their duty to Canadians. That's what they were elected to do, Mr. Speaker. And so what is it exactly that we're debating today? In its essence is a motion to compel a number of key government witnesses from the Liberals to come to committee, to face accountability, to be transparent on what they knew, what the Prime Minister knew about this political interference campaign from Beijing, when he knew it, and what he did or didn't do about it. And number one on that list is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, his longtime Chief of Staff, arguably one of the most powerful women in this country. Her name is Katie Telford. She has been the right-hand person to the Prime Minister since he started his political career, all through his election as a Liberal leader in 2013, through his winning election campaign in 2015, 2019, and 2021. She has been his ultimate gatekeeper, that's what Chief of Staffs are, for all of that time. She has been front and center, a key operator in every one of his election victories. As Chief of Staff, she would have had access to every top-level classified briefing. She is the one who decides the political filter of messaging that goes out, the information that gets to the Prime Minister. I can't stress enough how important a Chief of Staff is to the Prime Minister, and the fact that I think she's been the longest-reigning Chief of Staff to a Prime Minister in Canadian history shows how influential she is and has been, both in the Liberal wins and within all of the ongoings of this Liberal government in the last 8 years. And she's come to committee before on 2 occasions. Makes sense. I mean, she's such a powerful figure, wielding so much power in our democracy. Sometimes she's going to obviously have to come to committee and be held accountable and answer our questions of elected officials of her. But for some reason, if they're so desperate to stop her from coming to committee that now they may be threatening an election vote tomorrow, a confidence vote tomorrow. They've blocked for weeks at the committee a motion to bring her forward. That's why we're here debating it, because we were able to bring it to the House now for official debate and a vote on it tomorrow. But it really begs the question of why they're so desperate to keep her from coming. What does she know, Mr. Speaker? What does she know that they don't want Canadians to know? If she wasn't hiding anything, what's the problem? She's come to committee twice and, frankly, left relatively unscathed. She's a smooth, intelligent operator. If she's got nothing to hide, she can easily come and fulfill her democratic duty to be held accountable as a powerful woman in this administration and answer our questions as the elected officials. I think it's not a lot to ask, frankly, given what's at stake. I'd like to go over a little bit of what it is and what it is we're talking about and why it is so important. And now Conservatives have been asking questions, particularly of the Prime Minister, for a number of months regarding election interference from Beijing, but it was only about a month ago that the Globe and Mail and some of the most preeminent journalists in the country, Bob Fife and Steve Chase, broke a groundbreaking story about leaked CSIS documents. That's our spy and intelligence service. It's basically Canada's equivalent of the CIA. Leaked documents from them. Someone blew the whistle and gave this to Bob Fife and Steve Chase. And here is what they found in those documents, Mr. Speaker. I'll just quote it here. China employed a sophisticated strategy to disrupt Canada's democracy in the 2021 federal election campaign as Chinese diplomats and their proxies backed the re-election of the Liberals. You Went on to say, drawn from a series of CSIS intelligence gathering operations, the documents illustrate how an orchestrated machine was operating in Canada with two primary aims. One, to ensure that a minority Liberal government was returned in 2021, and that certain conservative candidates identified by China were defeated. This is what our head spine intelligence service has written. Fairly significant. You'd think that the government would be moving heaven and earth to open the box and tell Canadians what they know and what they've done about it, which amounts to really nothing to this point. It goes on to say the classified reports viewed by the Globe reveal that China's former Consul General in Vancouver boasted in 2021 about how she helped defeat two Conservative MPs. We have a diplomat from Beijing bragging about how she helped defeat two of my colleagues. But no public inquiry, says this Liberal government. We don't need that. We don't need the powerful woman who is likely briefed about this to come forward and answer our questions. No, nothing to see here. Most important, the Globe said, the intelligence report shows that Beijing was determined that Conservatives did not win. China employed disinformation campaigns and proxies connected to Chinese Canadian organizations in Vancouver and the GTA, which and went on to say to voice opposition to Conservatives and favor the Trudeau Liberals. And so forth. It went on to say, CSIS also explained how Chinese diplomats conduct foreign interference operations in support of political candidates in Canada and elected officials. Tactics included undeclared cash donations, very illegal in Canada, and having business owners hire international Chinese students and, quote, assign them to volunteer in electoral campaigns on a full-time basis. Also very illegal. Clear violations of the democratic rules we've set to our elections. And lastly, the Globe also reported that, quote, China appears to have targeted the Liberal Prime Minister in a foreign influence operation after he became Liberal leader in 2013. This is according to a national security source who said Beijing's plan involved donating a significant sum of money to the Trudeau Foundation. Notably, that was $200,000. And more than that, the Trudeau Foundation has since returned the money. Oops. I'm going to give that back. It's been a couple years that they've had it, but now that we know all this information, now they've returned it. But still, Mr. Speaker, nothing to see here, no need for a public inquiry or to engage in the committee process and have the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister come to testify. And I think it's important, something in this debate that we acknowledge is why would Beijing want to go through all this effort to interfere at the civic election? We've recently seen reports on this about impacting Vancouver. Provincially and federally. Why would they be doing all of this work? Well, they want the Canadian government to be sympathetic and supportive of their various agendas. And some of them are extremely serious and counter to everything we believe as Canadians. For example, they want Canada to accept China's claim on Taiwan by force, that it can annex it by force. They also want us to accept their draconian 2020 national security law on Hong Kong. They also want us to look the other way with what they're doing in Tibet and their militarization of the South China Sea and sweeping maritime claims in the region. They also want us to do nothing about the fact that they actively threaten Chinese Canadians on Canadian soil using covert so-called police stations that are operating completely illegally and in violation of our sovereignty on Canadian soil. Don't pay any attention to that. Here, we'll help you get elected. That's what's going on here. Or at least what's being reported that we could find out more about if there was a public inquiry and we heard from the key Liberal, the most powerful Liberal woman in the country, Katie Telford. And I do want to conclude with my last minute, Mr. Speaker, something I found quite moving. Recently, the person who blew the lid off this, the whistleblower from CSIS, wrote in the Globe and Mail, and I'll just conclude with a quote from him of why would he do this? Why would he risk going to prison, his reputation? I mean, it's very severe if it's ever revealed who he is, what will happen to him. He said, when I first became aware of the significance of the threats posed by outside interference in our democratic institutions, I worked, as have many unnamed and tireless other colleagues, to equip our leaders with the knowledge and the tools needed to take action against it. Months passed, then years. The threat grew in urgency. Serious action remained unforthcoming. I endeavored alone and with others to raise concerns about this threat directly to those in the position to hold our top officials accountable. Regrettably, those officials weren't able to do so. And in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, he said, in the time that passed, another federal election had come and gone, the threat of interference had grown, and it had become increasingly clear that no serious action was being considered. Worse still, evidence of senior public officials ignoring interference was beginning to mount. Those are the words of a very patriotic Canadian, Mr. Speaker. I applaud that individual for coming forward when nothing was being done, despite repeated alarms being sounded by this Liberal government and by the hardworking CSIS individuals to inform them. I support this member, and I ask that the NDP do their duty and vote for our motion tomorrow.
Good job.
Questions and comments, and as I said, I'll start backwards this time. The honourable member for Stanage Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It may be that the Green Caucus is the only one here that is prepared to say we haven't decided how we are going to vote. There are many good and compelling reasons to want some sunshine and daylight on this matter, but I have to say the part that makes me not want to vote for the motion is the excessive hyperbole and the partisanship and some cheap shots at people like David Johnson, at calling the Trudeau Foundation Chinese funded. This sort of thing drives away independent-minded and really committed Canadians. Would the honourable member help me understand how we can approach this issue in committee without it becoming toxic?
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
I appreciate very much the member in her style. I know it's quite different than some other members in the House, and I can respect that. I too act on committee as someone who brings people together. I do understand that, and in fact, the opposition parties, in many regards, have worked together. But now, when it comes down to the most important witness in Canada coming forward to tell us what she knows, now an opposition party isn't acting like an opposition party. It's acting like a sidekick to prop up a government who's trying to cover up what they know when they know it and what they did or didn't do about it. And on Mr. Johnson, I will say certainly his time as Governor General, very well respected. He is an eminent Canadian in many ways. However, for the fact that part of this public inquiry would have to investigate what the Liberal leader knew, I don't believe this individual is the right choice if you just look at his record. He is a member of the Trudeau Foundation, for example, and he aids in appointing the board members and crafting its bylaws. He was also the commissioner of the Leaders Debate in 2019, which appointed the WE co-founder, Craig Kielburger, to the advisory board of that commission. Also under his leadership, CBC Rosemary Barton was selected, and then she later sued the Conservative Party in that election. I can go on, but certainly not taking anything away from his time as Governor General. By all accounts, did an amazing job. Is he the right person to put the Prime Minister under immense scrutiny when he called him a lifelong friend? I would say no.
In comments, question commentaire, the honourable member for London Fanshawe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Aside from the fact that despite months and months of railing against coalitions, now their Conservatives are asking for support from the NDP, but I digress. I want to emphasize that the NDP was the first party to openly come out and say absolutely a public inquiry is absolutely necessary. That we were the first ones to push that. It was Conservatives after that said, yeah, okay, that'd be great. And it's not that we don't disagree. It's not that we disagree that there needs to be absolutely a public inquiry. But I also want to ask the member that we all know the dangers of misinformation. And I wanted to ask, she put a lot of emphasis on the rumors of this being a confidence vote. So does the member have documentation, proof that she could table, that she could bring forward on this actual confidence vote? Or is this simply just meant to play into that hyperbole that the honourable member from Stanage Gulf Islands was mentioning before? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a lot of respect for the member opposite, and I appreciate her question. This is from the Canadian Press. So this is mainstream news. Headline: Liberals float possibility of making motion on foreign interference in confidence vote. So she can look that up herself and judge if she thinks the news is spreading misinformation or not. I do have issue with the opening part of her question, however. She mentioned that the Conservatives are asking for the support of the NDP. It's not us asking for it. It's the Canadian people who care about upholding our democratic institutions, who deserve to know from the most powerful Liberal woman in the country, who is side by side of the Liberal Prime Minister for every single one of his election wins, who would have been briefed by CSIS multiple times about this, who would have held all the information for the Prime Minister and advised him how to act. We shouldn't have to ask the NDP to do their democratic duty that they were elected to do on behalf of Canadians as an opposition party to hold the Liberals accountable. We are not asking them. It is their duty to Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Time for a very short question exchange. L'honorable député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ben, écoutez, s'il faut que ça...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If it has to be brief, I will abridge as much as I can, which is not something I do easily. But what does my colleague think of the fact that we're here to debate and shed light on an issue? I didn't hear the Prime Minister I didn't hear the Prime Minister say that or the government say that, but to turn this into a confidence vote, isn't it just blackmail to say, I'm going to put the gun to your temple? I will force you to vote with us, otherwise everyone's going to go to an election. Isn't that blackmail? The Honourable Member for Kildone and St. Paul.
And I appreciate the Honourable Member's question. It sort of is a figurative, of course, gun to our head. I mean, we're going to vote either way. Come hell or high water, we'll go to an election any day. We'll go to an election any day. We welcome that if that's what happens to this government and it's lost the vote of this duly elected House of Commons, we will go to an election. That will not stop us, and I don't believe it'll stop the Honourable Bloc either, from voting to hold the Liberals accountable. That is why we are here. So no one will hold a gun to our head, figuratively, of course, on this. We will stand up here and vote tomorrow and do our duty to hold the Liberals accountable. Rest assured, Mr. Speaker.